there was I think it happened. There's a company called Smashwords that does a lot of ebook distribution. They had a problem with a company called PayPal, where PayPal was a little discouraged and upset with some of the books, some of the content that Smashwords was distributing, and so they gave Smashwords ultimatum and said, "You either stop distributing these books, or we will stop working with you," which was pretty bad for Smashwords because it was Smashwords' primary means for taking payments and processing payments to authors. And so Smashwords was panicking. They're like, "We don't know what to do. We can't do this. You're basically trying to enforce this idea of censorship, which we don't agree with." And so me and a friend of mine who I work with sometimes saw this. We're like, this would be a great parody. So we made fun of it. We decided, we took this idea of making kind of a little bit off-color parody about joking about censorship with publishing. And the punchline was about PayPal. We had to change it to Pal Pay so we don't have people mad at us. But we took this idea, we wrote it, we edited it, we launched it within 12 hours of the idea coming up in our heads. And so within 12 hours of concept, we had the book launched. Within a half an hour of uploading it to Smashwords, I got an email from the CEO of Smashwords, Mark Coker, who said, "Dude, I don't even know who you are, but this is awesome. I love this story. It is hilarious. It's so funny. I'm going to be blogging today, actually, about the whole, PayPal thing. Is it okay if I mention this book?" I'm like, "Free press? Go for it. Why not?" So he starts blogging about it. He emails me back the next morning and said, "Hey, by the way, are you on Twitter?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "Do you follow," I just blanked on his name, Stephen Fry, the actor. I said, "I think so. Let me go check my feed." And I look at this feed, and about 5 hours before, Stephen Fry had tweeted about my book. I'm still peeing a little over this. It's kind of amazing. So in the space of 36 hours, we had an idea, and Stephen Fry, on the other side of the world, tweeted about the finished product. This is something that you cannot do in traditional means. It can only be done through using ebooks and through the immediacy that the internet provides. And so it's an enormous and amazing and magical process.
We're also talking about author accessibility too, in a way that, does anybody here have Stephen King's phone number? Because I sure don't. But I'm easy to find on Twitter, my email's easy to find, and I get my readers sending me emails and tweets all the time asking me questions or giving me feedback, I think that's part of the strength of doing this, is that I can take that feedback, and when I'm writing, my next book in the series, I can go, well, people like this a lot, and they want to see more of this, and I can add that in where, I think traditionally that's a little more difficult to come by, and the internet really empowers not only the author, but the readership to contribute a little bit, right? And at least put their bug in the author's ear as far as what they really wanted to see or what they didn't want to see.
That's been happening with some small television shows too.
Yeah.
Well, about a year ago, I had a tweet from somebody in Ohio who had found my book in a used bookstore. I'm like, well, second, used? Really? Awesome. But also that just some had randomly found my book, and he's just like, "I love your book. Do you have more of these?" I'm like, "Yeah." "How did you find me?" He goes, "I just did a search and your name came up on the internet." I'm like, "Okay, it's weird." I Googled myself. Stop. Nice. And it was just like, I was like, wow, right there it was. It had my Twitter information. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird. That somebody found a book, liked the book, found my Twitter information, tweeted to me, and we had to start this conversation back and forth about the books. It was like, wow, this is really, really awesome. And on the one hand, I would love to get, I won't lie to you, I would love to be so J.K. Rowling-ish that I could say, "No, please, have my servants respond." But for the meantime, I really love the fact that I can respond to every single person. Like, feel free afterwards, come up and talk. We all have our cards here with our Twitter accounts. Twitter us, tweet to us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you're interested in terms of reading. What kind of stories do you want to read about? Because we know what we like to read about, but we can't buy our own books or we look really silly. But we want to know what people are really interested in reading so we can write stories to that. I'll keep writing stories that I want to read, and maybe nobody else wants to read them, but I'll still write them because I like writing them. I also write stories for my daughter who wants to read about, girls kicking butt, because that's fun to write. and yet, it's like, we want that feedback. We love that immediacy. I I would prefer this to doing a radio show. Radio show, which I've done, and it's cool and all, but you get no feedback. You don't have people like talking to you. But give me a face-to-face 1,000 times a day. I love it. Or over the internet too.
That's a great thing, actually, for marketing. When you do publish, if you publish with a small house like ours, if you publish for yourself, you get to have a relationship with the people who read your work. And that relationship is an excellent marketing device as well. You get to say to people, well, what would you say if we came out with this kind of anthology? Or you could solicit information from people. You can have a relationship with people that, like Garth said, you can't have with, Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or any of those people, but people can have that relationship with you. And so if you do self-publish, you need to keep in mind that there, I think, even is an expectation of having kind of a more of a personal relationship for the self-published and the small publishing houses than going with a larger publishing house. And people really appreciate it. People seem to really enjoy being able to talk about the book with the author. And kind of find out what's happening next or what your ideas are.
Yeah, I've actually found a couple of people who've read my books that are they're really, really passionate about them, and they love to just sit and talk to me about them. I've never met them in person, but I feel like I know them because they have messaged me so often, and I've actually had one of them, she was having a hard time being able to download my book for the Nook, so I was like, I'll just email it to you and you can PayPal me if you want, because you've been supporting me. So, you can do that, and you can have that, I wouldn't want to say intimacy, but it is kind of an intimate relationship, because you get to know, you get to know these people, they're both female, thank you. But you get to know these people a little more, and you get to have a little bit more connectedness with them than they might get with somebody who's traditionally published. And I think that's a very special thing.
Heather did tell me yesterday that the 2 greatest days of her life were when she married her husband, which is incredibly sweet, and more importantly, when she published her first book. When you get that book in your hand, it is the best feeling in the world, almost as good as being married to Garth.
Okay, so
Very close.
I'll admit, when I got the proof,
That's pretty good.
I cried. And I carried it around in my purse with me for the next month.
She did. I had to make her not bring it to
Literally.
bed. It's like, no, you cannot have this in my sleeping zone here, She was everywhere, literally. We're at the store, and I'm like, is that your book in your bag? And she's like, yes.
And it never goes away either. Like every time, like I've had 7 books published. Every single time the book comes in, I do a Snoopy dance. Every time.
I
And
think
I
you should
always-
demonstrate that Snoopy
Nope,
dance.
I will not. And then I always, my other tradition is I always sit there and I take a self-portrait with my picture and I Facebook it. I'm like, oh my god, look, it's so cool. And everybody's like, oh, that's nice, Randall, I know. But I guess one of the reasons why when we first started kind of talking, we started tossing the idea around about maybe doing something like this as a collaboration was just because there was so much joy that we personally experienced in having this idea. Like yours was from a dream you had. Mine was actually from a dice game, a D&D game that we had played, where my wife's character was this kind of a sci-fi anime-inspired Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we didn't get to finish the game. And after the game was done, I was really kind of sad because I'm like, I had such cool ideas for your character. I was going to torture her, and it was going to be fun, and you were going to hate me, but it was going to be awesome. And she's like, so what's wrong? I said, well, it's like the whole Roger Rabbit thing where it's a shave and a haircut, and the rabbit can't handle not having the 2 bits. I was like, it's like that for me. I didn't get the ending. I didn't get the punchline of this character. I didn't get to see this character evolve into what I could see her possibly evolving into. And she's like, well, moron, write the book. Well, okay. So
Challenge accepted.
challenge accepted. And so it's kind of what led into that whole idea. Is like I wanted to finish this character's story, and to go from that idea into 6 novels later, I'm like, I wrote the story. I got to see the character's whole evolution, and it's just an amazing sensation. And I'm like, look, if you have an idea and you wrote a book about it, you have to do it. Because there are for me, I have a few other items. I do have a daughter, and the moment she was born changed my entire universe. So that's up there as well with getting my books in the mail, but that sounded horrible. Okay, we will, yes, gold medal, thank you. No, putting it's higher than the books, but it's still the idea and the experience of doing it, of having an idea, having a concept, having something you've plucked from the ether, and all of a sudden, bam, it's there on your bookshelf. The first time I flipped through the whole book, and I looked at like, every word I wrote, that's so awesome. It was such an amazing sensation. And like, if you have an idea for a book, you deserve to have that same sensation. And the cool thing is, now you can.
If you finish it, finish your books.
Well, yeah.
Really, really, really finish them.
Please, because we like to read.
That is an
we also
important thing.
all of us are also very big readers on top of writing, so.
I currently have about 80 books on my Kindle, and I need more.
Well, I used to have a stack of books, and thank God for the Kindle, because that stack is like, I wake up in the morning like, one of these days, it will kill me. Because it was just growing. I'm like, I can't keep up with it. Everyone's always like, oh, Ren, you know what you should read? I'm like, no, don't tell me, I know. And it was just horrible. It's now I have a Kindle, so the Kindle's like, seriously, read or purge. It's so full of all these books I want to read, and I'm like, okay, just keep adding to the list, adding to the list, adding to the list. We love reading, so contribute to our madness and mayhem. Add to the pile that will consume and destroy us.
Please beat our addiction.